I would like to thank the speakers who are going to be with us today and for all of you who serve our veterans. Welcome to our in-person guests and those of you who are joining us online. I would also like to take a moment to thank the Planning Committee, my good friend and mentor, Evelyn Lundberg Stratton, retired Justice of the Supreme Court of Ohio. Retired Judge Michael Jackson, who served on the Cuyahoga Common Pleas Court and started one of the first veterans treatment courts in our state. Danny Eakins, Administrator, Office of Veteran Policy and Programs at the Ohio Department of Veteran Services. Tammy Puff, Officer of Governor Mike DeWine. Lieutenant Joseph Swati, United States Army, Ohio National Guard. Teresa Sickman, United States Department of Veterans Affairs. And William Davies, Interim Director of the Ohio Criminal Sentencing Commission. This year marks our 11th annual Veterans Summit. In this year's topic, we are devoted to specialized dockets and supportive services. Today, we bring together a host of professionals to discuss specialized dockets, supportive services that are available for veterans and include civil legal services, employment resources, and innovative and community-based resources. You will hear today from a panel on certified specialized dockets. Ohio has 250 specialized dockets. When I began doing this with Justice Stratton, there were 7 certified veterans treatment courts across Ohio. And today we have 28. I am thrilled that our efforts across Ohio have yielded caring individuals, judges, and team leaders who will help our veterans who are involved in the justice system find a pathway home. Ohio is a leader in the nation for evidence-based specialized dockets, and we thank the panel for sharing the trends and their insights. On the panel is Warren County Court of Common Pleas Veterans Honor Docket, which was recently named a National Mentor Court by the All Rise Justice for Vets Division in the United States Justice Department, a distinction that only 5 dockets in the nation has held. You will hear about veterans treatment specialized docket work and community partners that provide that access to treatment and resources for justice-involved veterans. You may also hear a dog's bark during the innovative Pathways to Healing, programs for supporting veterans. These programs explore the diverse supports available for Ohio veterans. You will also learn about relink.org. It is the statewide repository of services and practices of reentry for veterans and the broader community. Currently, the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Corrections uses this resource to help connect veterans to community resources. Last year's report, published by the Task Force on Reentry, recommended the awareness of reentry resources be increased both at the state and local level. I am confident that you will take away a new resource for future use in serving our veterans who are also restored citizens. Additionally, there are sessions that examine civil legal resources available to veterans and services offered by Ohio Means Jobs to assist veterans in securing employment. Before I introduce our first speaker, a couple of housekeeping matters. If you are viewing this event online and seeking continuing legal education credit, you will be asked a series of poll questions at various intervals during the day. Please respond to those questions promptly so that we can ensure that you receive full credit for your participation today. And now, to kick it off, I am thrilled to introduce Attorney General Dave Yost, a generous an enthusiastic champion of Ohio's veterans. Attorney General Yost completed his undergraduate work at The Ohio State University and then received his Juris Doctorate from Capital Law. He began his career as a reporter. You should ask him about that time. And then the citizens of Delaware County as the county auditor, and then later county prosecutor. Thank you, Attorney General Yost, for your statewide leadership on the Law Enforcement Liaison Program. I am grateful to you for that. It is a program that fosters connection between law enforcement leaders and veterans in their communities to ensure that veterans in crisis receive crisis intervention they need to save lives. Attorney General Yost.
Thank you, Chief Justice Kennedy. I remember that when she was first, well, I'll just shout if I can't get it up high enough. I remember when Justice Kennedy was running, and she came to see me and talked about her passion for veterans courts and was astounded that we weren't doing more. In fact, the program that she mentioned actually was born out of that conversation because she kind of pushed me to start thinking about what are we doing from the law enforcement side on the streets before they get to court. She told me then that her goal was to dramatically expand the number of veterans dockets operating in the state, and this has been a passion for her since before she was Chief Justice, and I'm grateful for your leadership, Chief. And of course, the godfather of specialty dockets, Justice Stratton, thank you for your leadership over so many years. I think of Justice Stratton, I'm reminded of a phrase from Friedrich Nietzsche, who talked about a long obedience in the same direction. You've never wavered, you've worn your heart on your sleeve, and you've led others for many, many decades now. So proud to know you and work alongside you. The rest of you, good morning. It's good to be with you. Some of you might have known, but now my secret's out thanks to the Chief. I'm a former journalist, a recovering journalist. I've been unjournaled now for over 40 years. Please don't hold my past against me. But I share that fact with you because I've always been drawn to statistics. When I was a reporter, I liked statistics because they tend to be spin-free zones. Of course, until the spin doctors get them. But let me share this statistic with you, 23%. That's how many Americans between the ages of 17 and 24 are eligible to serve in the military today. Just a quarter. Think about that, the ages 17 to 24, that's supposed to be the prime of our youth. But only 1 in 4 of the nearly 36 million people between those ages qualify for the military. Forget about anything else, we're just talking about qualified. But if you dig deeper, the numbers are much, much lower. How many are willing? Only about 9% would raise their hands. And of course, saying and doing are two entirely different things. Talk is cheap. Do you know how many actually joined as a percentage last year? 0.5%. And that, I'm told, is actually a recent record that it reflects an uptick. 0.5%. Qualified and willing, mentally, physically, morally. That's what it takes to join our military. So when someone comes back from their tour of duty and ends up in a court of law, it's important to remember that the person standing in the dock is one of those people. Qualified, willing, and able, and they went through with it. That should change the way we think about the person standing at the bar of justice. These men and women met that high bar to serve their country. Surely they deserve a different approach than the garden variety lawbreaker. They get that opportunity because of you, because of your work. I appreciate you being here today to further that work, to become more expert, more informed, to stimulate your imaginations and hopefully become inspired. Judge Loxley shared a pretty touching success story with me. I think everyone ought to hear it. A couple of years ago, a young man became one of those rare few who was qualified and willing to serve. He joined the Army. He was among the first to graduate from a newly reactivated brigade. This same brigade had seen serious action in World War II, in the Cold War, the Gulf War, before it was repurposed as a training unit. As cool as those historical facts and ties were, what was even cooler for this young man was the opportunity to serve his country just like his stepdad. 4 years now, he's made his stepdad and the rest of his family proud. In May, he surprised his family with a homecoming just in time to see his little sister graduating from nursing school. And his little brother was there too, a 6-year-old looking up to the big brother in uniform in the Army. And behind the camera for every moment, mom and stepdad. But that almost didn't happen, because when his father first came into this life, he was not involved, not the loving father figure that he eventually became. His stepfather was a man who drank to numb the memories of what he'd seen in Iraq. Now, the alcohol didn't change the past, as you well know. All it changed was him. Made him distant, unpredictable, mean. Until one day he drank away just about every good thing in his life. Multiple misdemeanors for domestic violence, a scared mother, sad kids. His family did not recognize him. He didn't even recognize himself. How did he get there? Thankfully, that man ended up in Judge Loxley's courtroom on her specialized veterans docket. The road to recovery is long and filled with temptation. It's been about 3 years since that man graduated. Pictures on Facebook, of course, only tell us so much. The happy pictures you see of this family are the real thing. That man's wife sent this email to the judge a little over a year after his graduation. You recognize that these men and women have seen more than anyone should ever have to, and have PTSD and other mental health challenges. With his attendance at your program and the other programs you had him attend through the VA, he is a different man. Your program has not only changed his life, but mine and my child's life for the better. He deals with his emotions and his feelings in a positive way rather than violence. He has not had any alcohol for over 1.5 years. Because of you and your program, he's a better man, father, husband. Without this change, I don't believe our relationship would have survived. I hope that someday I have the opportunity to thank you in person. I honestly cannot thank you enough for what you've done. Here's what she says at the very end. So many of these men and women get lost in the system when all they really needed was someone to care for, and believe in them. That's redemption. Happy to report that that man is now 5 years sober. Folks, this is why we do it. This is why you do it. Not only because it's the right thing to do, but because it works, because our veterans matter. These courts that you work in give our veterans the opportunity to heal, find their purpose again, and their families get the ones they love back. It's a community effort. So on behalf of 11.8 million people in Ohio, and really all of America that relies on the freedom that these men and women protected, thank you. Thank you for standing at the ready for our veterans at every step in the justice system. We owe the success of these courts, we owe the success of our returning veterans to you. I hope you have a great conference, and don't give up.
It's hard to believe that this, much taller than me, it's hard to believe that this is our 11th conference. So I wanted to give you a little history of how this all came about. I was asked once, why should we treat veterans differently than other criminals when they're in the system? And I looked at them and I said, most of them are there because of the wounds of war, whether they're physical, but mostly mental. But I said the other difference is a veteran is somebody who gave a blank check to the government up into including their life. And no other criminal defendant standing in front of me has done that. And so years ago, well, let me backtrack. My family was very involved in veterans. My 5 uncles were in World War II. My grandfather was in World War II, stationed as a bomb demolition expert in the New Hebrides Islands. My grandfather was killed in World War II. And my 2 brothers served in the Vietnam War era. My one brother was on the aircraft carrier as a air traffic controller, and my older brother was stationed in Udon in Thailand. They didn't send him to Vietnam, they sent him to Thailand because he spoke fluent Thai. Most of you probably know I was born and raised as a missionary kid in Thailand and lived there for my first 18 years. And he happened to be stationed in Udon at the military base, but a little outpost that was a listening post on the Laotian Pathet Lao, the communist gang there. But my parents also happened to be stationed as missionaries in Udon that same year, so he got to go home on weekends, which was really unusual. So I grew up, went to boarding school when I was 6 years old in South Vietnam. The Vietnam War started shortly after. We were there till '68 during the Vietnam War, and then the school evacuated and moved to Malaysia for the last 6 years. And so growing up, other than 2 short furloughs in America, when my parents were able to come back for a bit, all the Americans I knew were either missionary parents or GIs, we called them there, at the military bases, because we always had a military base near where we were in Thailand. Now, I was a 16-year-old with long blonde hair who thought I was really hot, and my mom never let me date any veterans or any military, but it's probably wisely so. But anyhow, that's what I grew up knowing. And so I came back to America and I had $500, put myself to college and law school, and very early on knew that God had called me to be a judge. Didn't know why, didn't really know what a judge was, never saw a judge or a lawyer growing up in Thailand, never saw Perry Mason because I didn't have a TV, but I just felt this is what God wanted me to do. And then many years ago, while I was gotten on the Supreme Court, I had that eureka moment that said, God wants me to work on mental illness and criminal justice. And so I started working on veterans courts and crisis intervention teams. And I went to a conference in Washington and sat next to a gentleman who said, we're going to start veterans courts. And I knew there was a veterans treatment court, or a veterans appeals court for benefits. When I asked him what he meant, he said, he described it. I said, well, that's a mental health court or a drug court, but with just a vet. And 2 judges had started doing that in their mental health docket, a separate track for veterans, because they had very different resources, different needs, and different behaviors. So I was put on a committee in Washington, and we went and did a big conference with the higher-up brass, and then I was put on a committee that created the Veterans Justice Outreach Program, which assigned a social worker to all the hospitals, VA hospitals in the states. And that program had 53 at the beginning, because we had 53 VA centers, and now it has hundreds. And those VJOs are the key to veterans courts because they can immediately, when a veteran's identified, connect them with services that are much more robust than some of the services that we have locally that aren't nearly as robust in that. And so came back to Ohio and we started working on veterans courts, and Judge Alt in Mansfield was the first one to do a veterans court. Went up for his graduation. One of the most moving things, had a Vietnam vet who said, I've been an alcoholic for 30 years. It is the first time I've dried out and I've got my life back. And I was just up there last Wednesday. Judge Alt passed away after a long career of 40-some years doing this, and then Judge Kemeter has taken over his veterans court. It was just a very moving graduation for that. And then I met Kennedy, who was thinking about running for the Supreme Court, and I urged her to do so. She was a domestic judge. She had been a police officer and had been wounded and had then quit and because of her injuries, and then had become a lawyer and then a judge and domestic court. And she said, well, I'm not sure, with the domestic court background, because the media always likes you to be on the Court of Appeals, and I never was. And I said to her, most people hope never to be in court for a criminal matter. And most of them hope never to be in court for a contract or a civil dispute matter. But half of this population, at some point or another, are going to end up in your domestic court through a divorce or something like that. And so that voice is needed on the court. Well, then when I found out about her law enforcement background, I told her about all the veterans work, and she became so passionate about it. I thought I worked really hard. I have to tell you, this gal works harder than I do. She campaigned harder than I did when I used to think I was the hardest campaigner. She went to all these counties and talked to them about doing veterans courts. We did a small separate conference just for judges to talk to them about veterans courts. And then she and I went to meet with Attorney General Yost about the military resource program, which he adopted and embraced and ran with. And she has become a true champion. Well, when I was on the court, I realized nobody talked to each other. The Department of Mental Health didn't know what drug and alcohol was doing, didn't know what DRC was doing about veterans. So I did my first conference, which was just basically connect the dots, getting all these people together to talk and share and collaborate. And I did that for 4 years when I was on the Supreme Court. And then when I left the Supreme Court, I did it for about 5 years outside of the Supreme Court. And then when Kennedy joined me in that effort, and we put them on jointly. And then when she became Chief Justice, she brought it back into the court. I think it's the second or third year the court has now been able to bring it back in, which actually was a blessing for me because I didn't have to fundraise for the event anymore because the court was able to do this. And so now we are at our 11th one. And over the years, we've done different themes, but now we're coming back again to really focus on veterans courts, which is kind of where we started, because that is really one of the keys. And I just wanted to mention briefly Judge Jackson. I think he is listening online. He was a veterans court judge in Cleveland, retired kind of like I did, where I said, no, I changed careers, I didn't retire. But he and I have worked on several pieces of legislation with some great partners in this room as well. One is to require all of the sheriffs to run the Veterans Reentry Search System. This is a system where every night at booking, you send the emails or the Social Security numbers to the VA. They identify if it's a veteran. It sends an immediate ping to your VJO, who then immediately can go and connect with the veterans. Despite Kennedy and I tirelessly pushing this, only about half of the counties have it. And veterans will not tell you they're a veteran. Even if you ask them, have you ever served in the military? You don't ask them if they're, a veteran. You have to ask other questions. Ross County put theirs in. I think they had like 6 identified through a screen, picked up 12 in 24 hours. Butler County, the Chief Justice's county, had picked up 12, did the screen, and picked up 24 more in 48 hours who did not tell them they were veterans. And every one of them then was now hooked up with VA services. So last conference, we learned that 2 states, Texas and North Carolina, mandate it by statute. I don't like to mandate things, but this is one of the easiest things to mandate because it's easy to put in. The VJOs help you put it in. We're putting some funding in the bill in case you have to buy software, because a couple of small counties don't have the software, but it brings so much money into your county. And even if they don't qualify for a veterans court, they qualify for services in those counties that don't have it. So that's one of the bills. And then the other bill we're working on for next year is a diversion bill that gives you special opportunities to divert a veteran if there are service-related injuries, especially aimed at those that aren't in a veterans court. So we keep working on these projects together, and I'm very happy that we are doing so. I wanted to do a little few housekeeping things. The chief had told you all about how to get the QR code and get your CLE and your CUEs and stuff. You have to do the evaluation at the end to get that, so please all do that evaluation through your code. I just did a forensic conference where I did this process for the first time, and it was actually relatively easy for somebody who has no technology skills whatsoever. So I want to encourage you. There's a resource table up there with lots of materials, so please during the break don't hesitate to go up there and take a look at the materials. And then I wanted to say one more thing then about Attorney General Yost. I had done the Attorney General Task Force, which Mike DeWine had approached me to do, and so I had closed down my Supreme Court committee and merged it with him, with the Attorney General DeWine's committee, and we did the AG Task Force together for 8 years. And then Attorney General Yost approached me in his first few months and asked me to continue it, and we're now in 6 years with him. We have 500 members. We have 15 committees with co-chairs for each, and it is a great resource. There are aging committees, juvenile committees, law enforcement, policy and procedure, you name it, 15. And there's one on veterans courts, which Judge Loxley co-chairs. And so I wanted to encourage you, if you have any interest, to go on the AG website and sign up. Just go type in the Attorney General Task Force on criminal justice and mental illness. Carolyn Bevins is the staff person there, will sign you up for the task force and then send a notice to the co-chairs, and you'll start getting the meetings. They all meet virtually, so you don't have to go anywhere. I think we just had a meeting, but great materials, great reference. If you have a program you do in your county that you want to share with others, it's a great platform to do that. So I just wanted to put a plug in for that and thank the Attorney General. And he has been, as the Chief Justice said, a real advocate for veterans issues. And one of the things she didn't mention is last year he was president of the Attorney General's Association. And as president, you get to pick a pet project, and his was veterans. And he put several programs on for the AGs of other states to learn how to work on veterans issues, the military resource program, and deal with that. And so we're very, very pleased to continue to have him as a partner. And I hope whoever becomes the next AG will continue it. I have a great hope that both of them will, because I know them. So anyhow, so that is my introduction.